Hi guys, so today we're gonna be talking about the whole Epic versus Apple situation. Like when I learned about it, it was just a mess. And that's kind of what the situation, like any other controversy, ends up turning out, a mess. So let's break apart this mess. Alright, let's just start with the basics. So, Fortnite decides to do this mega drop sale on their game for V-Bucks. Basically, you could purchase them like 20% off, basically. So like instead of $10, it's on like $8, except for like Apple phones, because there is a mobile port of Fortnite on iOS and Android phones. So what happened was on Apple and also on Android, what happened was there was this thing where you could choose when purchasing the V-Bucks, you could choose either pay Apple or pay Epic directly, and the Epic version was cheaper. And in all reality, it seriously pissed off Apple. I mean, that was to be expected, because then Apple immediately banned the game from Epic stores, banned the game from the Apple Store, and then Epic just retaliated with a lawsuit hours later and released a video about it. Like, this was all a pre-planned attack. Everyone already understood this was pre-planned. Like, you do not get a response this quick. A lawsuit in just a matter of hours, and a propaganda video just ready. They had this planned and everything. They had their research done. This was all such a planned attack on Apple. And all honesty, there's a lot of things that need to be broken down about this thing, because there's a lot. Like, the community reaction itself is very mixed. Like, as a community, we don't like Apple, obviously. Apple is very restrictive. I mean, it all goes with its closed system philosophy that Steve Jobs made. It's anti-competitive. So yeah, like anything on iOS, it has to go through the App Store, whereas on Android, you're allowed to do third-party stuff. So it's, in better terms, it's not developer friendly at all. Developers, your applications are easily just, the vision can be killed off. That's why you don't see that many big games on iOS as you see on PC. Like, and that's just the climate we live in. Like, an iOS version of a computer game is always going to be inferior to the PC version. I mean, there is their own mobile market which they thrive on. And I'm just going to state this very clearly. In my opinion, Apple is only good in the mobile market. Like, that's where they thrive. That's where they're good at. Because in the mobile market, the mobile market is where they thrive. It's portable devices. It's a whole different type of scenario thing. Like, you're not going to be doing like crazy stuff on mobile phones. So making ease of access phone is obviously, which is the iPhone. I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, there's just, I mean, of course, it's very limiting if that's your main device you work on, which is going to be surprising, honestly. But if that's your main device you work on, yes, it is limiting. But, I mean, that's because it's meant for portable use. And so, I mean, that's what Apple is good at. They're good at mobile devices. But they're nowhere near good in laptops and desktops. They're just not good at all. And so, there's a lot to break down with this whole situation, because this situation isn't just Epic versus Apple. It's very much game development studios also versus Apple as well. The main thing that's being scrutinized is Apple. I mean, Google Play was also the target of the lawsuit as well, but I really want to focus on what's the core crux behind this thing. And that really seems to be Apple. Apple is the dead set target. This whole situation has sparked a broader conversation over Apple and the ethical practices it does on its Apple Store and its antitrust violations it does numerous times. Its anti-competitive business practices. This is the conversation that's now been opened up. So there are stuff I don't agree with this lawsuit, like how Epic is sensationalizing themselves as victims or anything. Like, they make billions of dollars. Like, I mean, yes, they're going to be losing their money in lawsuit fees and whatnot, and what they're seeking is actually beneficial to developers themselves. So I will support, hopefully, I do support in a moral stance that Epic wins, but, like, I mean, the reason why they're complaining, really, I mean, they're just going off the backs that other people have problems with Apple, and so that's, like, the only support they're really getting out of it. And it is true, other developers are suffering because of it, small indie developers as such. And Epic Games themselves aren't really suffering from the mobile market as such. Anyways, let's just get back on topic. So, let's just break down it from the beginning. So, Apple removes Fortnite from the App Store. In the terms of service, it does say that all purchases need to be, if they're going to be in all applications, they have to be routed through the in-app purchases system of Apple. And this is all done to protect the consumer. This is done for the consumer benefit. Because, you know, there's a lot of malware out there, and then, like, Apple is, like, supposed to be this whole closed system, and basically, in its entirety, in a way to explain it, it's just basically this shell, but it's a huge shell, and it's just like protective space. Consumers are protected from the evil stuff out there, and for a general consumer who's not into development or anything, pretty great. I mean, no problems. That's why Apple is pretty popular among the general consumers, because it's pretty much safe and everything. It has all regular tools you're probably gonna need, because, like, as a developer, you're probably gonna have, like, multiple applications. Like, I have, like, Blender, Adobe Dimensions, like, I got Unity, Unreal Engine. I got so many applications out here, and then like, 'cause that's what developers need. But, like a random person who's probably working financial job management, just going through records or something, I mean, a MacBook probably will suffice them. And that's the reality of it. So, I mean, the terms of service do exist as a closed system to protect, really, the consumer as such. Which is why everything that's put on Apple devices has to be run through by Apple. So that just covers the whole thing. So Epic Games violated terms of service and got their application kicked off, which is, yeah, I mean, that, in an ethical standpoint, yeah, Apple has the right to do that. They violate terms of service, and yeah, it's their device. By technical standpoint, they are allowed to use it. Whether the terms of, now, off the bat, we can already see there's a few double standards going around here. If you look at something like Netflix, like, there are streaming applications on iOS. If you look at them, all you have to do is just set up an account directly from the developer, the publisher, not from Apple. Actually, like, when you get a Netflix subscription, and you have Netflix on your phone, you're not, paying Apple, you're paying Netflix directly. That just seems a little, fishy. Like, it's sort of double standard on multiple apps out there that this type of thing exists. Like, a YouTube Premium, like, and YouTube is an app on, exists as an app uh, on iOS, and it's also on web browser as well. But YouTube Premium, I mean, are they taking a cut off of that as well? Probably not. And so, yeah, that's a big double standard that's going around. How some applications that do have in-app purchases by Tecmo standpoint don't even use the in-app purchase software. Why aren't they kicked off the App Store? I mean, do we actually know? Like, here, I'm going to search up Netflix, iOS. Wait. Netflix, iOS, yeah, I have an article here from The Verge. Basically, Netflix stops offering in-app subscriptions for new and returning customers on iOS. It's no longer allowing new customers on iOS to pay for the streaming service directly through in-app subscription. It's the latest example as a company with a high-profile Essential Mobile ditching Apple's payment system to retain more profit for itself. I mean, reading through this entirely, Netflix has stopped offering it through Google Play. Yeah, this happened in 2018. If I'm reading this correctly, they still exist, man. Like, you don't have to. You just set up your account on your computer and then just go onto the Netflix app and just sign in through there. They're still allowed. I mean, that there is the double standard. That's one thing that is being pointed out. That is a double standard. How the terms of service are BS completely, and how they're enforced. I mean, yeah, it's Apple's terms of service, and yes, they should enforce them, but they're not enforcing them fairly, which does bring a question. So, yeah, done. Alright, let's move on to the next section, which is developers that are also being screwed over Apple that might benefit from this. So there are big party developers such as Microsoft out there with launching their new streaming service, xCloud, for game streaming. So it's been multiply reported about how iOS is just like is just basically not allowing streaming on their platform, and I very much think that's because of iOS's own platform, which is Apple Arcade. I mean, and that's kind of my big speculation around it. Apple knows this will be a big hit because this thing isn't meant for mobile devices. It's meant for portable gaming, and they just launched their new streaming service. Like, if people see this and go like, oh wait, you get these, first of all, these are full AAA games, number one. Isn't these like little tiny Apple mini games? They're just going to get rid of Apple Arcade immediately. Apple knows that they're being threatened, but in business-wise, by these big companies. They know that if they allow such a thing, they're going to be ruined financially. And this is not like company financially, that the program they're running is going to be ruined financially. So Apple Arcade will just go become what Google Plus became. I mean, it's just not going to work out because there's a far superior platform now. Like how instead, in this time, it turns out Apple Arcade came out first. And we have a superior platform that has now come out. Which is interesting when compared to looking at how Google went around it. And with Google, it was Facebook was already existing and big, and Google Plus tried to take it with their Google Plus application, but it failed out at the end of the service. That's how it turned out to be. It's interesting, really, how business works. And it's very, then, anti-competitive. They're just basically going like, okay, we know we can't compete with you, so why not block you out of our system? Which I mean, is just basically they can do that because it's their device. And I don't think this antitrust argument really is going to work well with Quad, because by technical standpoint, it is their application, is their hardware, number one. Number two, it's their own operating system. So if they want to decide what goes on their software, their hardware, then they get to decide that. I mean, that's fair. And as much as I hate to admit, they can do that. Furthermore, they can, if they find existing software to go against their terms of service, they can remove it. Because that's how it works. The whole antitrust argument really, I don't see, is going to work out in the end, because as competitive it is, they are within their rights to do so. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It's unethical, but they're within their rights. Which is why I do think Apple's going to win in the end. Because in the end, it's their platform. And the developers, by technical standpoint, when they put their application on mobile, they're signing the terms of service. They agree to them. So when they violate them, they shouldn't expect their applications being. They should expect applications being kicked off, and that's just the unfortunate landscape. Now you may complain, but everyone's on iOS. You know, most people carry on iOS iPhones, and that's just a sad reality. How people allowed, like, that was why Steve Jobs pioneered the closed system thing. It was so that Apple could gain control over the tech space. Like, you look at the charts, you can see Apple is the biggest of all the big tech companies. Apple is the biggest of them all. And they're just going to grow bigger. Now, you may pull up the statistic and go like, but Android is this, it has 86%, and iOS is just 14%, and that's complete BS, because Android isn't owned by one. Android software isn't controlled by one company. Apple controls iOS. Android is controlled by Google, Amazon, Samsung, Microsoft. Like, there are multiple applications that use the Android software. So, Apple can very much be seen as this big monopoly. I mean, they hold control over the general consumer, the casual consumers. They hold control over that market. They hold control of what those people get to see and not see. I mean, it's like they're their own form of government, which is really weird. Honestly, but I mean, that's just a sad reality of it. Now, your only option would be then put it on Android. Keep it on Android. Most gamers themselves, like myself, I'm using an iPhone. Yeah, wow. What do you know? But yeah, a lot of people use iPhone. I mean, I guess and this very much is more of an issue of the gaming community, not an issue really of, though it does involve outside parties, it really affects, this whole issue just surrounds its core at the gaming community. What's unfortunate, obviously, is that literally most of Apple users are not a part of the gaming community, so they wouldn't care two hoops about this thing. And that's just the sad reality of it all. Like, if another product, another hardware phone were to ship out, first of all, that was, like, it had, first of all the security implementations that go into iOS, because iOS is pretty secure, if we're being honest. Like, you see all these reports on Android being like, bad and new malware on there and whatnot. I mean, iOS, when apps go through the App Store, like, they're checked hardcore. Of course, then, yeah, there is some malware. Like, I've seen it out there. Also, there's, like, some games out there that are just basic. Like, Raid Shadow Legends is basically just a casino at that point. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I like to question if that system is secure. But, like, for the most part, for defending against malware, it's pretty secure. I'm not gonna lie on that point. It's really secure on that point. And that end, really. Moving on forward, if we're gonna look at it, Apple, so back to the topic. So if a company had the security of Apple, having all apps that go through their system be as checked for secure, like that they aren't mysteriously thieving with the customers as such. If they have that security, good. Number 2, they're open. They allow any type of software onto their device, like on their operating system. Basically, I'm not saying really that we have I'm not saying that we should allow suggestively that you could install, like how on Android you can install multiple stores on the device. You can install the Epic Games Launcher on Android. You can install multiple APIs on there. I'm perfectly fine with the App Store as long as the App Store is more open as such. Same security, but terms of service are relaxed on the developer side. If it's more developer friendly, because what benefits developers will hopefully, and I would say this because this can go either way, benefits the consumers. Because if the developers are given more freedom in how they design their apps, then they're going to be more likely to go put it on the App Store as such. Problem is, Apple is way too strict on certain apps because they're double standard on Netflix, they're double standard on multiple other apps. If you're looking at the video streaming market, it's a double standard right there. So they need to relax their terms of service. Take, first of all, a lower cut. Because 30%, I'm seeing this like in other areas, aspects of 30% wasn't just Apple. It's on other platforms as well. We're looking at it like not 30% because that's not the standard obviously, but other companies out there are taking money. So what it would be is that take at least maybe a 5% and make if Netflix is going to use you can't treat them differently. You can't treat application differently because then that makes your argument about creating a safe environment complete BS. And now I think about it, I really don't see this going in anybody's favor, really. Because in technical standpoint, there's a lot of shady stuff that Apple has done, and that's enough to make a case against them. And if more developers pile on, it's going to hurt Apple in the end. You already seen Spotify join the charge, and Spotify has been at war with Apple for years. And now they've joined. Now they have a big giant because Epic is way bigger than Spotify, and they're just joining into pile on Apple for its closed system architecture. And it's, in all honesty, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Apple's just going to be using that terms of service argument to the death. It's going to beat that terms of service argument to the ground and say, hey, it's our platform. We decided what software. They signed the contract, and we get to decide. And Epic is basically going to pull out anything in the book just to hit them hard. It's going to be... And, it could go either way, man. Like, honestly, I want Epic to win, but I I just don't know what will happen. I want Epic to win more so that other developers aren't screwed around with, and that Apple fixes its business practices. That's what I want. If Epic wins, then that is able, hopefully that will happen. Because if Epic loses this lawsuit, then it's only this case can be then used against other developers who have grievances with Apple. It's only gonna be now used against them. Like, it's a whole court case, like, using court cases for your favor sort of ordeal, basically. Like, if you're fighting for like something like this business practice that's unethical, you lose the case, and another person who fights about the same business unethical business practice, they're going to be having a hard time fighting the fact that there's a court case about the same thing, and the victim there lost the case. They're going to have to fight that part and go like, oh, the judge was mistaken as such. So this is a really big case. And in no part should Apple ever win. And there have to be sides drawn. The community's actions are mixed, and it's rightfully so, because Epic, as we all know, is still a multi-billion-dollar company in the end. But in the fight that is Apple, which, no matter how secure it is, has always double standard with its developers. It's consistently, it takes a really high percentage cut for some reason, 30%. I mean, that's higher than other stores out there. Only time will tell. And hopefully, in the near future, Epic wins, because, I mean, as I've seen, they've hired the best lawyers, they've hired it all. Now, I saw this argument, I just want to break this down. There's this one argument out there that the only reason why Epic was doing this is to eliminate competition, because they get their fans, the internet. This came from Upper Echelon Gamers. His video came out just in the afternoon today. And I do want to talk about that stuff. His main point was how Epic Games Store launched on PC and basically became a competitor to Steam. The problem with that argument is there's no basis to go off of, because Epic just competed with Steam with exclusivity and free games. And in the general consumer mind, it doesn't have its audience really. Like I only use Epic Games for the free game stuff. Like, that's it. My main platform will always be Steam. And that's pretty much every PC gamer out. Steam is your platform. That's it. Epic Game Store is more or less like a child. Like, it's like, how should I say this? It's more or less the store I would go to for presents, is the best way to describe it. And that's kind of true for pretty much, there may be some people out there who go like, yeah, Epic Game Store is my store I go to. And yeah, good for you. You got no friends now. But like, most people just use Steam, that's it. And entering the mobile market with their own store, that's just, like, I can see the profitability, but they already failed on Android though. So what says they're gonna win in the Apple market? They failed on Android. They had it Fortnite exclusive on Android on the Epic Games Store. You couldn't get it through Google Play. You had to go download the Epic Games Launcher, and it failed there. And then they decided to port it over to Google Play. So that argument that came out, that's just not right. That's not true at all. They're not these people who are trying to sneak in and destroy, like, they're not trying to destroy the competition, and it's very clear in their statements. They're trying to make a wider space, a more evenly competitive space for every developer out there, which is, I think, what the community wants. So, I mean, yeah, the argument's quite disingenuous, in a sense, and I think that's really how I should wrap up my thoughts on this controversy as such. So yeah, that's really how I feel about the topic. Hopefully, I do want to talk about one last thing: the propaganda video. I can't leave that out. The propaganda video, the 1984. Yeah, I dig some George Orwell, Lord of the Flies. 1984. Okay, so they released a propaganda video that parodies Apple's video of 1984. It's basically this like ad. It's an ad that they played during the Super Bowl. It was what got people onto like the Macintosh until they found out it was complete BS. Just shit. They figured out Macintosh was so limited, and because it's an Apple computer, and you all know Apple computers are bad, so yeah, Macintosh was BS, and so yeah, that thing failed. Didn't revolutionize anything at all. So if we're looking at it clearly, so the Apple, that ad was basically at a time, and it was basically trying to paint Apple as underdogs against IBM, which was like dominant in the computer industry at that time. So they were trying to paint themselves as the underdog, and it's like, get our computer, Macintosh will launch. Don't let 1984 become 1984, which is a reference to 1984, a novel by George Orwell, which is all about, big government, controlling basically an authoritarian type society where everything's controlled by the government as such. And it's comparing basically IBM to that sort of thing where they're a corporation, like a government in control. They basically they're trying to say they have a monopoly over the tech industry, which was like sort of true at that time. So yeah, that's the famous ad campaign, and I mean it was sensationalized for Fortnite. I mean, no, Fortnite. Apple does not hold a monopoly over the computer industry. It holds a monopoly over general consumers. It doesn't hold a huge monopoly over the tech industry as such. I'm gonna rephrase that. It's getting close to becoming a monopoly. It's invaded a lot of spaces as such, and is a very dominant factor in many different spaces. If you look at different industries out there, teaching industry, with teaching, the most likely tech you're going to use is Apple's tech. Or the only space that's really being on the offensive against it is development space, software development. The tech space itself is quite against Apple, so that's the only industry that they have yet to break into to fully reach monopoly level as such. And so, I mean, though it's a sensationalized campaign as such, there are a few messages to look at very clearly, and really one is that Apple is reaching a point where it's going to be a monopoly if it's allowed to continue its anti-consumer practice, anti-developer practices, anti-business practice, anti-competitive practice. It eventually will become a monopoly because they already have a core audience. Like, these developers, their products go to the casual audience, and when the casual audience is on Apple, these developers are going to be sort of forced into working with Apple. And that's just the sad reality. Because more and more people are moving away from Windows. You're going to see more people using MacBook. I mean, the tech development field is rising. More and more people are interested in joining the tech field. But that's just basically the same thing as more and more people want to do teaching and stuff like that. Doctors and stuff, and they're probably going to be using the Apple products. So we just live in a sad reality where a monopoly is possible and very true, and breaking that monopoly, that's a must, man, because it does signify to what 1984 is all about. And the very existence of what's in that ad can very much happen. And we shouldn't think of this as now Fortnite versus Apple. Moreover, we should think of this as developers, tech enthusiasts, versus a media conglomerate, a tech conglomerate, I should say, a tech conglomerate that restricts its developers. That's how it should be. Developers and tech enthusiasts against Apple.